The US Navy just gave Russia something so terrifying. Moscow knows it's over. In the pitch-black frozen void of the Bering Strait, deep into the final days of April 2026, a heavily armed Russian-Chinese convoy tore through the razor-thin ice like a pack of wolves closing in on wounded prey. Engines screaming at maximum throttle hulls, smashing aside massive floes that would crush lesser vessels. The fleet hurtled forward far beyond any sane safety limits. On American radar screens aboard the U.S. task force, patrolling these contested waters, the threat escalated with terrifying speed. Blips multiplied from 1 to 3, then 7, then an entire wall of hostile contacts barreling straight at them. The Arctic, once dismissed as a remote, frozen wasteland, had become the ultimate trillion-dollar strategic prize, and Moscow's latest decree claiming the northern sea route as internal Russian waters had turned the entire region into a geopolitical powder keg ready to explode. This was no random navigational mishap or innocent passage. It was the latest brazen chapter in a calculated campaign of hatred and provocation that Russia and China had been escalating for months. Just weeks earlier, in late April 2026, intelligence reports confirmed a shocking new joint military pact. Moscow and Beijing announced expanded Arctic basing rights, including fresh forward operating posts along the Siberian coast, and coordinated patrols that deliberately skimmed Alaskan airspace. These moves weren't subtle. They were designed to intimidate, to test American resolve, and to seize control of shipping lanes, oil reserves, and mineral riches that could reshape global power overnight. The hatred ran deep. Russia's state media openly branded U.S. presence in the Arctic as imperialist encroachment, while Chinese officials cheered the partnership as a necessary counter to Western hegemony. Every aggressive maneuver screamed one message: "We dare you to stop us." Alarms shattered the tense silence across the U.S. Navy bridge. Piercing sirens wailed without mercy as the distance closed from 18 miles to 1716 and dropping fast. No radio hail, no course correction, no reduction in speed. The convoy was on a deliberate collision vector engines, roaring louder as they accelerated through ice-choked channels that would spell suicide for any normal fleet. Leading the charge was the Ivan Papanin, Russia's newest armed icebreaker, a 9,000-ton steel monster packed with cruise missiles, heavy machine guns, and electronic warfare suites capable of blinding entire battle groups. Flanking it were Russian and Chinese destroyers, their decks bristling with anti-ship missiles and surface-to-air batteries. Tucked in their electronic shadow lumbered a dedicated reconnaissance vessel, its forest of antennas, sucking up every classified signal the Americans emitted. Gas carriers and support ships completed the formation, turning the convoy into a floating fortress of defiance. The U.S. task force held position, every sailor and officer acutely aware that this was no longer some abstract exercise. The Arctic had become a theater of raw hostility, where one wrong move could ignite open conflict between nuclear powers. General quarters sounded across the American ships, the klaxon echoing like a death knell through steel corridors. In fighter cockpits and sonar rooms alike, hearts pounded as crews braced for the unthinkable. Was this a catastrophic error by overconfident adversaries, or a deliberate deadly trap engineered to force America's hand and expose weaknesses in Arctic defense? The hatred fueling the maneuver was unmistakable. Russia and China were openly daring the United States to blink first, to yield the strait that guarded the gateway to the Pacific and Atlantic alike. But the Pentagon's invisible net tightened like a steel trap closing around its prey. Instead of depending on distant satellites vulnerable to jamming, the U.S. task force activated a cutting-edge integrated multi-domain combat network right at the edge of the known world. High-speed processors in the Combat Information Center fused data from thermal imagers, electronic sensors, acoustic arrays, and even underwater drones in real time. Within seconds, the black expanse of the Bering Strait transformed into a high-resolution, transparent digital battlefield. Every Russian and Chinese movement, every course change, every radar ping was stripped of mystery and converted into precise, tracked coordinates glowing on massive displays. America wasn't just watching, it was owning the information space, turning the enemy's own aggression against them. At Eielson Air Force Base in Alaska, the icy silence of the tundra exploded into action as the Arctic Edge exercise shifted instantly from routine drill to a high-stakes, real-world interception. 2 F-35, a Lightning. 2 stealth fighters roared off the runway, their Pratt & Whitney F-135 engines blazing like twin suns against the polar night. Each jet capable of supercruise at Mach 1.2 without afterburners, and boasting unmatched sensor fusion, represented the pinnacle of American air dominance. Close behind launched the E-2D Advanced Hawkeye, the Navy's airborne early warning powerhouse. Its massive rotodome packed with the APY-9 radar system that could scan hundreds of miles in all directions while resisting the harshest electronic interference. As the formation pierced the atmosphere, sonic booms cracked across the ice fields, a stark, unmistakable warning to the Kremlin that America's gatekeepers had arrived and were not backing down. Inside the E-2D cockpit, the mission commander locked in the APY-9's high-energy UHF waves. This wasn't a passive search. It was an aggressive interrogation of the sky itself. In a single 8-second focused sweep, the radar sliced through Russia's thickest electronic camouflage, painting a crystal-clear picture 150 miles out. A formation of Su-35 flanker fighters, providing high-altitude escort for a large, slow-moving target that had just lifted off from Anadyr Air Base and was vectoring straight into the combat zone. Algorithms aboard the Hawkeye crunched the data at lightning speed, revealing a chilling hypothesis. That slow target wasn't there for dogfighting. It was a specialized platform designed to reshape the underwater battlefield, coordinating with submerged assets in a multi-layered trap. Meanwhile, the F-35s maintained absolute electronic silence, their low observable coatings and advanced sensors turning them into invisible ghosts. The APG-81 radars aboard each Lightning II quietly locked onto every Russian pilot, feeding God's eye data through the MADL secure link to the entire task force. The Russians, feeling the invisible pressure mounting, grew impatient and desperate. They broke formation, lighting up their own radars in active scanning mode to hunt for the unseen intruder. It was a fatal tactical blunder. By broadcasting their exact positions, they walked straight into the meticulously prepared sensor trap laid by US forces. At that precise moment, Moscow unleashed its maskirovka deception, the classic Russian art of military trickery cranked to maximum. Aboard the Ivan Papanin icebreaker, the powerful electronic warfare suite pushed to its limits began flooding the spectrum with noise. Simultaneously, a Chinese Type 052D destroyer activated its broadband jamming arrays. Together, the two adversaries created a massive wall of interference targeting US data link frequencies. The effect was immediate and brutal. F-35 cockpit displays flickered, distorted, and went black. The Link 16 network, the backbone of modern networked warfare, choked under waves of white noise. On the E-2D, the commander watched the tactical picture dissolve into static and grabbed the emergency analog radio. All units were blind. Repeat, the data link has been compromised. The real world turned as lethal as the virtual one. Capitalizing on the chaos, the Russian-Chinese fleet closed the distance to just 12 miles in the iceberg-clogged strait. 12 miles in those conditions was a heartbeat away from catastrophe, collision, miscalculation, or all-out firefight. The U.S. task force stood momentarily deaf and blind, facing a razor-thin 47-second crisis window where one error could spark unintended escalation or disaster. Yet the U.S. Navy never relied on luck. While standing by in the cold zone, an EA-18G Growler squadron from Elson was vectored in immediately. These electronic attack jets are the undisputed masters of the electromagnetic spectrum, the only aircraft on Earth capable of waging full-scale war inside the invisible battlefield of radar waves and data links. In just 4 minutes of blistering high-speed flight, the Growlers reached the hotspot. Their crews focused high-energy beams with surgical precision, targeting the exact frequencies of the Russian icebreaker's jamming system and the Chinese destroyer's radars. Superior processing power and adaptive algorithms overwhelmed the enemy barrage. Within 60 seconds, the data link roared back to life. Tactical screens illuminated once more. The fog of war lifted violently, exposing a Russian-Chinese force that was now overextended, vulnerable, and staring down the barrels of a fully restored American war machine that had never lost the initiative. Restoring connectivity marked a massive victory, but the Kremlin still held one hidden blade beneath the ice. Lurking in the crushing darkness for hours was a Kilo-class submarine nicknamed the Oceanic Black Hole for its legendary stealth. This diesel-electric predator, one of Russia's quietest underwater killers, carried advanced torpedoes and could operate undetected in shallow, noisy Arctic waters. Yet the extreme cold proved a ruthless adversary, draining batteries to critical levels. To recharge and prepare its attack, the sub was forced to raise its snorkel, its diesel engines rumbling to life and creating the faint acoustic signature that could betray it. On the surface, the Ivan Papanin recognized its electronic gambit had failed and switched to raw physical intimidation. The massive icebreaker slammed its 9,000-ton hull forward at maximum power, not merely blocking passage, but executing a deliberate shielding maneuver. Its enormous propellers churned the icy waters into a chaotic curtain of waves and thunderous noise designed specifically to mask the submarine's engine roar and blind American sonar arrays. The hatred in the tactic was palpable. Russia was willing to risk collision and international incident just to protect its underwater assassin. Escalation raced into the skies to seal the trap. A Russian Tu-142 Bear maritime patrol aircraft refueled in flight after departing. Anadir screamed in at dangerously low altitude. It began dropping a barrage of sophisticated decoy buoys programmed to mimic the acoustic and magnetic signatures of multiple Kilo-class submarines. Suddenly, U.S. sonar screens lit up with dozens of ghostly contacts swarming the ocean floor. A deliberate storm of false data engineered to induce total tactical panic and force a fatal mistake. Intelligence assessments gave the submerged threat exactly 3 minutes to complete its torpedo launch sequence. The U.S. commander faced an agonizing 47-second decision window. Any hesitation risked disaster, but the U.S. Navy does not chase ghosts. On command, the entire task force switched to full submarine hunt mode. Leading the charge was the P-8 Poseidon, the world's premier maritime patrol aircraft and submarine hunter. Its crew recognized that turbulent surface conditions rendered traditional sonar unreliable, so they pivoted to revolutionary high-resolution surface search radar. Instead of listening for sound, they hunted for physical fingerprints, tiny, unnatural ripples and wake patterns created by the Kilo's snorkel piercing the waves. At the same moment, the Poseidon's multispectral sensors sniffed the pristine Arctic air. In this untouched environment, the hydrocarbon molecules from the submarine's diesel exhaust stood out like a blazing beacon, impossible to conceal or jam. Between the radar wakes and chemical trails, the black hole suddenly materialized on American displays with pinpoint accuracy. The decisive blow didn't come from the sky alone. From the battlefield's edge, an MH-60R Seahawk helicopter swooped in at wave-top altitude, deploying a passive sensor net that enveloped every possible escape corridor. No hiding spots remained. The entire body of water became an invisible cage, tightening by the second. The Kilo captain, realizing stealth had evaporated, executed an emergency dive, killed all engines, and fled in 70 seconds of desperate silence. The underwater threat was temporarily neutralized, but the surface battle raged hotter than ever. Right then, the EA-18G Growlers pivoted their fury back onto the Ivan Papanin, unleashing devastating electronic warfare beams that shattered the icebreaker's navigation, GPS, and communication systems. High-intensity jamming left the 9,000-ton behemoth blind, deaf, and crippled. Simultaneously, the F-35 squadron executed a thunderous low-altitude supersonic pass directly over the enemy command ship at Mach 1.1. The shockwave shattered windows, rattled crew members to their core, and left the entire Russian-Chinese formation dazed and disoriented. Speed dropped to a crawl to avoid smashing into icebergs. In under 2 minutes, Moscow's meticulously planned pincer movement collapsed into complete tactical ruin. The Tu-142 lost all contact with both the submarine and surface command. The once menacing fleet sat powerless as the U.S. task force reasserted total dominance. Peace. Then the ice itself seemed to scream in protest as the final trap slammed shut. Just 500 yards from the Ivan Papanin, nearly 1 meter thick pack, ice cracked and erupted upward in a spectacular explosion of frozen shards. A massive black steel sail tore through the crust, rising like a vengeful phantom. It was the USS Delaware, a Virginia-class nuclear-powered fast-attack submarine, the quietest predator in the world's oceans. Fresh from completing Operation Ice Camp Boarfish in late April 2026. The Delaware had been shadowing the entire confrontation undetected the whole time. Its acoustic signature was so minimal that even Russia's most advanced sonar arrays stood no chance. In a real shooting war, the entire Russian-Chinese fleet would have been sent to the bottom before they ever knew the submarine existed. They had been dead for 20 minutes. They simply hadn't realized it yet. All of Moscow's elaborate tricks, the icebreaker's noise barrage, the Kilo's snorkel desperation, the Bear's decoy swarm, proved utterly useless against American stealth supremacy. Trapped between lethal F-35s overhead and torpedoes lurking below, facing a nuclear-powered hunter-killer at point-blank range, the adversaries had no choice. They broke off, turned tail, and retreated under the flimsy excuse of a planned training exercise, desperate to salvage any shred of dignity. But the message was crystal clear in this new era of Arctic confrontation. Russia and China's hateful provocations had met their match. What if they hadn't backed down? The USS Delaware stood ready to release swarms of ultra-small unmanned underwater vehicles, tiny, stealthy UUVs that could silently attach to enemy hulls and track every movement of the Northern Fleet for years undetected. Instead of explosive fireworks, Moscow would have faced an invisible technological parasite embedded in the heart of its own navy. That is the truly terrifying reality America just demonstrated. an invisible invasion right inside the enemy's most prized assets. Moscow knows it lost this round before the first shot was even considered. The game has fundamentally changed. Folks, pause right here for a second. After watching how close this high-stakes standoff came to catastrophe with Russia and China's coordinated jamming decoys and submarine ambush, what do you think their real endgame was in the Bering Strait? Were they truly testing boundaries? Or was this part of a larger plan to seize Arctic dominance once and for all? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Do you believe the US response was strong enough? Or should we be doing even more to deter these aggressive moves? Your voice matters in shaping how we understand these escalating tensions. The victory in those frozen waters was absolute, yet it carries a sobering warning for the entire world. Russia and China's deepening alliance, marked by joint patrols, shared bases, and relentless propaganda blaming the West for every Arctic incident, reveals a level of coordinated hostility that threatens global stability. In the weeks leading into late April 2026, fresh satellite imagery showed expanded Chinese icebreaker deployments alongside Russian nuclear submarines in the region, accompanied by inflammatory statements from both capitals accusing America of militarizing the North Pole. These were not defensive measures, they were offensive probes wrapped in denial designed to erode US influence and claim resources worth trillions. The hatred is strategic, patient, and increasingly bold. Yet the US Navy's performance proved once again why America remains the indispensable guardian of international waters and rules-based order. From the seamless integration of stealth aircraft, airborne radar giants, electronic attack specialists, maritime patrol aircraft, and silent nuclear submarines, every asset performed flawlessly under pressure. The Virginia-class boats like the Delaware represent a generational leap capable of sustained, high-speed submerged operations, advanced sonar that can detect threats at extreme ranges and weapons loads including Mark 48 torpedoes and Tomahawk cruise missiles that can strike from hundreds of miles away. The F-35s bring sensor fusion that turns pilots into battlefield quarterbacks, while the Growlers dominate the invisible war of electrons with jamming power that can shut down entire enemy networks. This incident, though resolved without bloodshed, underscores a terrifying truth. The Arctic is no longer a sanctuary of peace. It is the new front line where superpowers collide over melting ice. New shipping routes, opening due to climate shifts, and vast untapped energy deposits. Russia's northern fleet, once a Cold War relic, has been modernized with hypersonic missiles and nuclear icebreakers, while China's self-proclaimed near-Arctic state status has justified massive investments in polar-capable warships. Their joint operations reek of calculated aggression, pushing boundaries to see how far they can go before provoking a response. But as the Russian-Chinese fleet slunk away into the distance, the U.S. task force remained on station, vigilant, prepared, and unbowed. The Delaware slipped silently back beneath the ice, a ghost that had just reminded the world of American technological and tactical superiority. In the end, Moscow's grand gamble ended in humiliation. Their carefully orchestrated trap lay in pieces, their vaunted stealth submarine exposed, their electronic warfare rendered impotent. The message echoed across the polar night: challenge the United States at your peril. And yet the story doesn't end here. This confrontation is merely the latest flashpoint in a rapidly warming Arctic that promises both opportunity and danger. Experts warn that without continued investment in polar defense, similar provocations could escalate into direct conflict. The U.S. has responded by expanding exercises like Arctic Edge, bolstering alliances with NATO partners, and accelerating next-generation platforms designed specifically for extreme cold operations. The Navy's commitment to multi-domain dominance ensures that any future attempt to rewrite the rules by force will meet the same decisive resistance. So here's the final question for all of you watching and reading. Do you believe this latest Arctic showdown signals that Moscow and Beijing's ambitions have finally hit an unbreakable wall? Or is this just the opening act in a longer, more dangerous game? Are we witnessing the dawn of a new Cold War in the far north? Or can diplomacy still prevail before hatred boils over into something far worse? Share your honest opinions in the comment section right now. Like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you never miss these critical updates on global security. The US Navy just delivered a masterclass in deterrence, and the world is watching. Moscow knows it's over, but the real question is, what will they try next? Stay tuned, because the frozen frontier is heating up faster than anyone predicted. The stakes have never been higher, and America stands ready.